Today we are talking about circular breathing. Circular breathing is a very useful technique which enables a player to maintain an almost continuous stream of air throughout their instrument indefinitely. As with most techniques, it's relatively straightforward to get a good grasp of the basics, but it takes quite a lot of work to be able to use it in advanced circumstances. The principles behind circular breathing are really quite straightforward. You store air in your cheeks by puffing them out, and you use your cheek muscles to force that air out through your mouth. Like that. Whilst you're doing that, you suck air in through your nose to replenish the supply in your lungs. Once you've replenished the supply in your lungs, you then support that airflow through your lungs via your diaphragm in the normal manner. So, step 1, store air in your cheeks. Step 2 is to push that air out using your cheek muscles. Whilst doing that, snort air in through your nose, which will replenish the supply in your lungs. And then the last step is to start breathing as normally. Once you put that all together, you will then be able to maintain an almost continual flow of air through your instrument, like this. Now that was a little bit shaky, but the principle was still able to be demonstrated. With more practice, you'll get better at making your sound very smooth and reverting to your normal vibrato if you're a player who plays with a bit of a vibrato. Key things to remember: the amount of air and the rate that you push that air out depends on the capacity of your cheeks. Most of us have got a very short, very small capacity of air that we can store in our cheeks, unless you're Dizzy Gillespie, who could have probably played for hours with the amount of air he stored in his cheeks and neck and upper abdomen and so forth. If you're trying to do this technique on a larger instrument, you are going to have to push more air out because larger instruments require a greater airflow to maintain their sound than a higher pitched instrument. So for instance, I can slow down this technique and take quite a deep breath on a small instrument like a trumpet. But if I was playing a large instrument like a trombone or a baritone, euphonium, something like that, all of that air gets expelled very quickly to maintain the airflow. Also, it differs between different volumes and so forth. So you'll want to do a lot of practice, not just maintaining that technique, but developing it across all levels of dynamic variances and different styles and so forth. So the principles, as I've said, are really quite straightforward to get a hang of. Where it takes a little bit more skill is to actually implement this technique into your everyday playing. Now, it's very easy to do this on a long held note, but if those notes are changing, your lip pressures are going to change as well. So you'll want to practice this technique whilst playing scales. The very last echelon of circular breathing is to be able to tongue and articulate notes whilst playing, and this is something also that you'll want to practice if you're particularly needing to use this. Circular breathing, however, is something I have never actually needed to use. I've played in a variety of bands and a variety of different instruments, and I have never once come across a technique, a piece of music that I had to play and employ circular breathing. It just doesn't really seem to be that called for. There is a piece called Moto Perpetuo, which is just 4.5 pages of semiquavers with no rests whatsoever. If you were somebody that wanted to play that, then this is a technique you would need to adopt, but it's not something I personally have ever needed to use. Anyway, I will demonstrate this in context, and I'm going to play the opening part to a piece which I have no idea how accurately to pronounce, but I'm going to call it Chardash by Vittorio Monti. There we go. Thanks very much for watching.